You ever wonder why when you watch the PGA Tour and they show those cool lines of the red lines and the blue lines or whatever color they are tracking the golf ball, why no ball that they ever track is straight? That's the question, and this is the podcast that I'm going to tell you the answer as to why. So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets. So when I moved back to Ohio from Arizona, right, I'm playing professional golf. It's 2014, and I used to basically not break into this facility in Arizona, but I used to go into this facility and I would pretend to test clubs, but really I was trying to get on Trackman. And the reason I was trying to do it back then is I was like, man, if I could just hit 1 7-iron or 2 7-irons and I could figure out my yardage, then I could basically take my clubs, and I knew all my clubs' lofts and lies were correct, so I can move my yardages 12 yards in either direction. So if I was hitting a 7-iron, let's say 170, it was like, okay, I'm hitting an 8-iron, 158. I'm hitting a 4-iron, or a 9-iron, 146. I'm hitting a 6-iron, 182, and I could figure out my bag. So now, fast forward that same journey into Columbus, Ohio, where we moved back, right? Leslie and I have kids. You know, I'm still playing at the time, but I'm starting to kind of dabble in coaching, and I'm working and practicing at this, basically with this Trackman in the back of a CrossFit gym, which was really the first golf room. And I'm sitting there practicing, and Trackman was not a thing. Kevin Streelman, one of my buddies, had it, but he was one of the only guys on tour, one of the first adopters of Trackman. There just wasn't very many around, right? So it was very, very foreign as to what it is and what should you be looking for. So when I would start to hit balls, I was I would call my coach, who was Mike Bender, and I'd be like, Mike, what should my numbers be on Trackman? And he's like, I don't know. And I would call other people, what do you think my Trackman numbers would be? And no one could really give an answer, right? Because I wanted to answer the question of what are all tour players doing? And I just want to mimic and basically figure out and copy what they're doing, because what they're doing is working, right? So I went on this massive quest to figure out what are the optimal Trackman numbers for on-course performance. What are these guys' numbers when they're hitting balls? So as we continue to move through the story a little bit, I decide that I'm going to start teaching, right? And the first thing I'm I'm getting ready to go teaching, and the first thing I go, I'm not going to go to the PGA of America and go through that whole journey. And that was just a personal decision, nor here nor there. It's a great organization, but at that time in my life, it just wasn't the right fit. So I go, I need to get some sort of certification to show I understand stuff. So I go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to basically become a master Trackman professional. At that time, there was 40 in the world. So I was like, if I could understand this machine, which was essentially basically capturing missiles out of the sky for Denmark, right? They were using it as a radar technology for finding missiles in planes. Then that would help me understand, because I feel like this is the way the world is going. This would be a year ago, depending on when you're listening to this, it'd be someone a year ago being I'm going to dive into AI and artificial intelligence because I think it's going to be a thing. So I was kind of ahead of the time of understanding Trackman and all this stuff. So when I would do this, I'm playing and I'm texting Mike. I'm like, what should your numbers be? What should your numbers be? What are the tour numbers? And I call Trackman. I'm like, can you send me the data of what are the tour players doing, right? And what I found with all of the data is that no one was hitting it straight. No one. They all had club pass, and just to kind of understand, so you can understand the story, is that I already, basically face angle, when a club hits a ball, a face angle determines where the ball starts. So if the ball starts right, the face is open. If the ball starts left, the face is shut. If the ball starts straight, the face is square. So the face starts it, and then the path bends it. So if the face is square and the path is going one way either side on a lot, that's going to create a big curve, right? So I'm looking at all of this data, and I already knew as a player that I wanted to have that I had a stock shot. At this time, I had built a stock shot, right, as a player. So I knew that hitting curves was the way to do it. But I was like, what are the optimal numbers to hit this curve? Because I knew that if I could get a ball that started right, curves left, and not over curves the line, there was a lot of advantages to it, right? If you think of not every green, but most greens are tilted back to front, right? And you go, well, what kind of putts do you like to hit? If I were to ask you that and you were here, you'd go, well, I'm a right-handed golfer, Kyle. Like, I like to hit right to lefters. I go, right, and which way are the greens sloping? You go, they're back to front. I go, so what if you were hitting shots and most of the putts that you had opportunities for birdies were right to lefters? You go, man, that would be great, right? So while I'm doing this, I know I need a stock shot, so now I dive into all the trigonometry, which I do not need to bore you with, but I am going to talk a little bit of numbers because I think it's important to understand the concept as to why we are trying to help you build a stock shot, right? I mean, Ben Hogan even said, to know how to hit a proper fade, you first have to know how to hit a proper draw, and you can't do the fade without the draw, right? It's kind of like the fade's the master's, like your master's degree, and the draw is your bachelor's. You have to know how to do it. That's because the symmetry and the physics of the swing are the same. They are the same for a draw and a fade. The only difference would be your alignment and your face angle at impact, which we can talk about at another time. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they are coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets. So I go, what are the ideal numbers for an on-course performance? And what I found by putting it into the lab inside Denmark is that essentially for a 180-yard shot, you would ideally have a club path that's about 4.5. Now here is why. Because the average face of twisting on the PGA Tour is 3 degrees. So when you have a club path that's at 4.5, to hit the line for a stock shot that you hole out, you need to have the face angle half the path. So it needs to be about 2.2, 2.3, right? So if I had a club path that was 4.5, and the club paths for players are very, very consistent. It's like the most consistent thing you have in your golf swing, right, is club path. Why? Because our stuff is our stuff, right? And the way you swing, even though it feels different, it's the same every time. The only difference would be your tempo and your rhythm and your timing are different day to day, moment to moment, which is why you hit different shots, which impacts the face angle, which determines 75% of where it goes. So if my club path is 4.5 and I go, man, well, what if the face was shut? Like, and it was on the 3 degrees? That would be 1.5 degrees. So what happens is now the ball curves right and it over curves the line, which we don't want here in Stock Shot Nation, right? But the ball will only over curve from 180 yards. It only over curve the pin 9.6 feet. And I was like, well, that's great, because if it's only 9.6 feet, there's no pin that's off the edge of the green more than 3 paces. So now I basically hit every green, even if I over curve the line. And I was like, okay, but what if I go 4.5? Well, now the club's going to come at 4.5, the face is 4.5, and if I do that, I hit the ball about 30.5, 31 feet right of the flag, which is a lot. However, it's inside the PGA Tour average. So now I hit every ball inside Tour average, and if I overcurve the line, it's only 9 feet, so I don't short side myself for that up and down. So I was like, okay, now the math has validated what it is that we're doing. And now, because of the fact that I had learned things as a player, I had ways and had taught ways of we can change the swing by these feedback loops of cones and noodles. And then in the event the guys are hitting or girls are hitting on Trackman, now they have some numbers in which they could go back to and say, am I in the bounds of what I'm trying to do, right? Like, is my club path right? Or correct, I should say, right? Like if your club path is -2, that's a problem. Right? If your club path is 12, that's a problem. So like there's a level of acceptability where you should be, kind of like, let's say body fat, right? I don't know what the level is, but let's just say it's like, yeah, you should be like, healthy human beings are 12 to 17% body fat at the age of 45 or whatever it may be, right? So now that kind of gives it. But the truth is that every player curves it. And if every player curves it, we should probably strive to curve it. So many people are like, what kind of ball? When they come in for a lesson, I go, what kind of ball flight you want? They go, I'd just like to hit it straight. I go, you might as well just go try to find a unicorn in the parking lot. Good luck, man, right? Like that doesn't exist. So we need to have some curve. That's why professional bowlers, they bowl and all bowlers curve it. If they thought hitting it straight was better, they would do that, but they don't, which is why we need to curve it, because the geometry allows the ball to start right, curve left, not over curve the line. and now the ball is always playing offense, working towards the pin, and it's always like, okay, get a little closer, get a little closer. Then it hits the green, and then because it's got the side spin, it kind of works back more towards the flag. It's kind of like fishing, right? Like you're always throwing the lure past in the front and like upstream so it can go across the face of the fish. If it overcurves the line, like even like that 9.6 feet, which is not ideal, but then if you do that with fishing, you're never going to catch the fish. He has to go across the face of the fish. And when it does that, you might be able to do it. So that's why we want that ball to start right, curve left, and go and spin left, because now it has the opportunity to hole out, which is the same thing that happened when I bought into this concept when Mike Bender taught me, because it was first introduced to me by Jack Nicklaus, then validated by Mike Bender. And he goes, hey, just get ready. You're going to start holing out a lot. And I was like, you don't know what Trackman, man. That's ludicrous. He goes, now how many hole-in-ones have you had? I go, I've never had a hole-in-one. He goes, how long have you been playing golf? I go, I've been playing golf since I was 6. He goes, you've never had one? I go, no. He goes, oh, get ready. You're going to have one. I was like, all right, whatever. I went on to have 7 hole-in-ones in 23 months because of this concept. So we have to break the false belief that hitting it straight is the way to do it. Every ball flight needs to have some amount of curve. Now, too much curve is no good, and too straight is no good because of the fact that we never want the ball butterflying to where we can't basically attack a pin. We want to make sure that we have ultimate control over the ball, because if we have ultimate control over the ball, then we have ultimate control over our score. And that's what this is about, is shooting lower scores. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Hopefully this helps. And we'll see you guys back here again for another episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Now, as a listener of Stock Shot Secrets, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get better. So if you were to go to stockshotclub.com, I'm going to give you 7 days free access where you can send us your video and we will give you personalized individual attention as to what you need to do so that you can start building stock shots. So just go to stockshotclub.com and register there. We'll give you 7 days free where you can try it. And then if we like it, you can stay inside the Stock Shot Club where we can become your coach and walk with you for your entire journey. Thank you so much. And be sure to go visit stockshotclub.com.